Providing your bird of prey with a really good, varied diet is one of the best ways to ensure your bird is healthy and happy. Now, when it comes to feeding your birds, there are 3 things you should always keep in mind. Number 1, always use food that comes from a reliable and trustworthy source. You don't want anything that's got infection in there, where you don't know where it's come from, maybe something from the wild that could have disease in it, or lead pellets, or something like that. So use a reputable company, a reputable supplier to provide you with your food. Number 2, create a menu, so you actually vary your food for your bird, and you can change and edit that menu as you like, but it gives you a bit of a guide throughout the week of what you're going to feed your bird and on which days. And the 3rd thing would be to ensure to control the amount of food you're feeding your bird of prey. That includes birds that are molting, where you may feed them a lot more food and even more variety perhaps, and when you're flying your birds free and you're keeping them at a sensible flying weight, therefore weighing them every day and monitoring the food that they're actually being fed. Now, firstly, storage. You will need to keep the food in a freezer, and I recommend not keeping food for any more than about 3 months. Try and have a FIFO, first in, first out rotation system going on. Now, the freezer I bought in 2011 for just £60 second hand, and it still works today. And even though it's rather scratched and battered on the outside, inside it does keep the food frozen. However, it can sometimes build up with frost, so I tend to defrost the freezer about 3 times a year. If frost builds up around the seal, then this can jeopardize the control of the temperature and may mean your food isn't fully frozen. When defrosting your food, allow at least 12 hours. The best way is to place it in a container with a sealed lid. This will stop flies and any pets and things getting into it, and pop it somewhere with an ambient temperature to defrost. Alternatively, you can pop the food in very warm water, but not hot water, as this will begin to boil the meat, which of course the bird can't eat. It can only eat raw food. This is also quite a useful way of getting a bit more water into your bird. If you've got a bird that very rarely drinks water, might not be a problem. It gets most of the fluid from the animal it's eating, but a little bit of extra water with the wet fur or feathers of that prey item you're giving your bird can help increase its water intake. Now, when it comes to the different foods that falconers usually feed their birds, the first one would be docks, day-old chicks. Usually cockerel chicks and also turkey chicks are quite good too, they're slightly larger. And the best use of these is for flying, because you can pull the legs out and have a bird fly to the glove for just a little leg. You can use a head in the same manner, or you can use that to throw food in the air for the bird to catch in the air, or even to throw on the floor for the bird to see something a bit bigger on the floor and get that as well. You can of course use the full body, and you can mix up the way that you use a cockerel chick to feed your bird. The only slight drawback to docks is they do have a yolk sac inside, which is there for the young chick to use as an energy source for the first few days of its life. And being day old, they still have that yolk sac. It's literally just egg yolk, which in some ways is messier than blood. It's kind of stickier and not very easy to clean off sometimes. Now, it's advisable not to feed your bird the yolk all the time. Roughly half the time, you should be removing that yolk. You know, a little bit of yolk now and then isn't going to harm your bird, could even be good for it. But really, you don't want your bird to be having yolk too often, because the cholesterol level could be too high and can cause problems later in life when it comes to that bird's health. So if you are feeding your bird chicks 4 days a week, and you were to de-yolk them half that time, then they're only eating yolk twice a week, and that's not really going to be a problem. The next thing on our menu would be things like the mice and rats. So they come in different sizes. Mice come in pinkies and fuzzies, and you've got small mice, medium mice, large mice. You can get extra large mice. Then you move on to the wiener rats. Then of course it's small, medium and large rats, extra large rats, jumbo rats. If you have a very small bird of prey, like a kestrel or a small owl of some kind, then the small or medium mice would be sufficient. If you're feeding mice to a larger bird of prey like an eagle or an eagle owl, then really you want at least large mice, if not weaner rats. And of course, those larger birds of prey do favour a large rat as well. Rodents are a little bit higher in fat, and they're quite useful for birds in winter to give them a bit more energy when it's colder, and they're just a great thing to vary for your bird of prey, because rodents in the wild are caught often by birds of prey, especially owls, and it's already their main diet in the wild, so you're just kind of mimicking that. Larger prey items include quail and things like rabbit, hare, pheasant, and any other what you call wild caught prey that you could offer your bird. Now, the great thing about these particular food items is they're really rich in fibre, which is mostly in the feather and the fur. They're really rich in calcium, vitamins and minerals. And these food items are especially useful when a bird is molting. So when you feed your bird more food, usually the brain will think, we're getting lots of food here, so we've got lots of energy to grow new feathers. So it's a great way of initializing a molt, and a great way to support a molt. What I recommend through flying periods with your falcon or hawk or owl is to offer small cuttings of quail and rabbit and things like that to support its diet. Now, when it comes to keeping your bird at flying weight, there is a big difference in the energy content of quail versus chick and versus mouse. And you'll need to learn exactly how much food your bird would need when you're varying the diet like that. And of course, weighing your bird regularly will really help. If you keep a record as well, that really helps. A little notebook, write down what the weight of the bird was, what flying you did with that bird, maybe the temperature of the day, because a warm day in summer, the bird won't use as much energy compared to a really cold day in winter. And then write down, of course, the amount of food you fed the bird and what the food was. And that will give you a bit of a guide and help you to educate yourself on what food to give your bird and how much. Most of the food items I've mentioned you can get in from a company like Honeybrook, who deliver to the door and boxes, all of it frozen. That's where I get my chicks, mice, rats and quail from. And things like pheasant and rabbit are usually wild shot, wild hunted items. Now, if you're a hunting falconer, you should already know a bit about hunting in the winter, of course, and how that works. But if you're just getting the food in and you're going to freeze it for a while before defrosting it and using it, you need to be careful that that bird hasn't been shot with a lead pellet. There's nothing in there that shouldn't be in there. And also, freezing it will help to kill off certain things that might cause harm to your bird. Pigeon is something you can feed as well, but it is recommended to remove the head and the crop, as this is where most of the disease would be in the pigeon, and I highly recommend you avoid ever feeding your bird an urban pigeon. Always go for a countryside wood pigeon, as they tend to be less diseased than the urban ones, and I've seen it firsthand, the nests that these pigeons live in cities, and you can tell from the smell alone how unhealthy they really are. So here we see a graph which shows the nutritional value of the different items of food you can give your bird. It's worth maybe using this. You can find it online, print it off, pop it up in your workshop, and you can use it as a little bit of a guide there. And if you look at the way that the elements vary on there, you can see how a varied diet will really support your bird. And of course, when it comes to any animals kept in captivity that we're managing the health of, usually the advice of what we feed those animals is that we feed them what is most natural for that animal to eat. And of course, with birds of prey, they are catching in the wild mostly birds and small mammals. So that's what we tend to feed our birds. I hope you found this video useful. Any questions, please pop it down below. Anything you think I've missed out or got wrong, please let me know as well, and I'll sure to reply to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching.